What's going on, everybody? I'm here today with the one and only, oh yeah, the OG, the master of marketing himself, Rich Schefren. I am so excited to have him here. You know, Rich, I still remember sitting in the audience like a little kid, right, learning marketing, and you went on stage and you shared this one page back then you had, and I remember just thinking like, holy crap, this guy is so smart. You know, I wish I could meet him one day. And it's so crazy. I still have that feeling come back to me every time I like text you or message you, and I'm like, well, I'm like talking to that guy. Like I'm talking to the guy who I used to just look up to so much growing up. So first of all, thank you for everything you do for the industry, man. You are seriously one of the few that has lasted this long because the brilliance that you've shared. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for saying that. And I feel the same way when I talk to you. So the feeling is mutual.
That's awesome, man. Well, listen, so you're going to be speaking at WebinarCon, which we're super excited. You're a returning speaker. Thank you for coming back. To anyone who's wondering what the heck is WebinarCon, well, there's a link somewhere around here. Click WebinarCon.com. We're officially 50% sold out, which is killer because we're about to cross the number of seats that we've had at the first two events, because this year we were going to double down. So we're already about to pass the number that we had in the last 2 years. So this is going to be a killer event. We're super excited. If you are an existing marketer, this is for advanced people only, okay? If you're an existing marketer and you either have a webinar that already converts or you're about to create a webinar, you have to be at this event. This is one of the few events in your life. Look, I'm going to tell you right now, most of us go to events and we're like this. We're guarded. Someone approaches us. We're like, oh my God, I don't want to talk. Well, this room is so protected and everyone in that room is there to network and make deals. So this is the type of event where you can actually walk up to Rich and say, I've got something I want to talk to you about, something we could work together on. And he's actually mentally come prepared for that conversation. We've had so many amazing deals, major partnerships, joint ventures that have come out of the last two events we've done. So WebinarCon.com, we are now officially on the track to selling out. So don't wait around. Go to the URL right now and get your ticket. So Rich, first and foremost, thanks for coming back to speak again. But before we even talk about the topic of the event that you're going to talk about, what's going on in the world of marketing, man? You have been around to see so many cycles. I find it probably one of the best questions I could ask you is what has you excited right now that you're seeing in the whole marketing world?
Well, there's lots of things. And, I started a subscription service a couple years back called Steal Our Winners. And what Steal Our Winners provides are strategy and tactics that are currently crushing it that the world doesn't know about yet, which is pretty appropriate, especially to talk about here, because we built this product, and we launched it a couple years ago. But the part of the backstory of that is that when I looked at the success that I've had personally, as well as the success that I've helped my clients have, a lot of it can be boiled down to using a strategy or tactic at a moment in time when other people weren't using it, and that creating all the difference. So for me, it was free reports back in 2006. Right? At that moment, no one else was doing it and my business exploded. And then in 2007, it was live streams. And in 2007, that's when I brought the VSL to Agora, and they grew from 200 million to 1.2 billion that year. Got the $1 billion testimonial from Agora to prove it. And then in 2008 is when we invented the automated webinar. And that's when I wrote the report on webinars and gave my software, because it was all internal, to Russell Brunson, and it got him out of a really bad bind. And I gave it to Mike Filsaime, and he built EverWebinar and then Webinar Jam off of that software. So, we really were one of the first to do automated webinars, and that's why I'm always excited to talk about webinars. But because of my subscription service, Steal Our Winners, I talked to, literally hundreds of marketers pretty much every month, finding out what's currently working for people. And so we publish twice a week on it, but in order to find those strategies, I'm talking to people all the time. So what's been working really well that I've been doing more and more on is using TikTok. A lot of people are having a lot of success in using TikTok organic to actually sell high ticket programs. I just did a call. I did an interview yesterday, so that won't be published for another month, but did one where a brand new business that sells like coaching for men who are married and run a business to be better husbands, better fathers, and better business owners. This gentleman just started 2 months ago, and in the last 2 months, he's brought in $150,000, had like 400 appointments scheduled, all from just organic TikTok. It's gotten about 200,000 followers on TikTok, and those followers have also moved to Instagram and also to YouTube. And a lot of people are having success with that, actually using TikTok to grow their Instagram audience as well as their YouTube audience. So, I haven't heard of anyone using TikTok to sell low price stuff effectively, but I've heard a lot of people use TikTok to sell high ticket. And it's primarily a numbers game there because there's so many people on it, and your message can spread so quickly that it's very effective for that. I've also, I've seen, and I'm looking forward to an interview that I'm about to do with Daniel Throssell. I don't know if you know who he is. Do you know him?
No.
So his site is Persuasive Pages, and it's kind of interesting because he showed me his, he logged into his ESP, his email service provider, and showed me how he has like an 80% open rate, and it's pretty insane, right? And what he does is he has a dual track, like 2 tracks going on at the same time. So you opt in and you get an email, and that email takes you, and it's kind of story based, and it takes you, like if you click on the link, it takes you to a site where there's a different story going on. And you read that story and it ends in a cliffhanger. And because you clicked on the link to went to his site, the next email is already waiting for you in your inbox. So when you get to the cliffhanger, if you want to know what happens next, just go back to your email box and click on the next link. So he has a lot of people who opt in and go through like 10 to 15 messages on day one, spend 2 hours going back and forth because that keeps happening. And it's an extremely powerful process. And I haven't done the interview yet, but I'm really excited to do it. I actually texted him yesterday to ask him if he's ever used it with webinars, to see if it would be good during the indoctrination sequence or during the sales sequence behind it. He hasn't, but I'm going to see if anyone else has before we, hop on and before I fly down there and present for WebinarCon. But I'm trying to think, what other ones have I done recently that have been pretty cool? YouTube is still blowing up. YouTube Shorts now are really, really effective. Instagram Reels are really, really effective. And so we've seen a lot of shifting of people generating lots and lots of leads through those 2 processes. And believe it or not, I did this. I did an episode about like 8 months ago, but I checked in to see if it was still working. I had a contributor talk about using I'm drawing a blank now, which I'm embarrassed to say. The platform that got like really rose a lot like a year ago, that was audio based,
Clubhouse.
Yes, Clubhouse. Okay. So did an episode about 8 months ago where this person was using a strategy of using Clubhouse every time before they did their webinar, and to get more people on their webinar. And it was Kim Walsh Phillips, and she made over $1 million just from Clubhouse people that went over to her webinars over the previous 12 months. And so as another driver of registrants to the webinar page, right? So that was kind of interesting. And lots and lots of strategies. I could go on and on and on about it, but one of the things, that whole service was based on the fact, right, that the biggest successes I've had and the biggest successes my clients have had have been from new strategies. And I I'm a protege of Jay Abraham, right? He's been a partner of mine for 15, 20 years, and he's kind of a surrogate dad to me. And I've spent a lot of time in his office, and we've talked many times we talk all the time on the phone. And one of the things when Jay, when he's in his groove, and talking to tons of people and really at the top of his game, he starts every conversation, instead of asking like, how you doing, what's new? He asks, what's working? And if you say nothing, then he's like, who do you know who has something working, and what are they doing? And if you think about like starting every conversation you have with marketers, like what's working, by the end of the day, you know stuff that you didn't know at the beginning of the day. And it's just a great question, like when you talk to marketers, to ask them what's working, because generally people have something that's working, right? Like that's what you started. Like what have you seen working right now? And it's just a great question, because if, when you come to WebinarCon, if you ask the people, if you start your conversation with what's working, no doubt you'll leave knowing an incredible amount more, because the people in that room all have stuff working. And I'd say like the big thing for me that I liked about WebinarCon when I was there last was that you're in a room with everyone else that has webinars. And so it becomes really easy to do a lot of joint venture deals, because like you promote my webinar, I promote your webinar, and it's like clean, right? Like we both have the same kind of thing, and we know exactly how to promote one another, and it just works really well. And so, yeah, lots of JV deals done there, and just a high caliber audience. And that's at least my experience from the last time I was there, when you did it back in Maryland.
Yeah, I have a funny picture I took that I've saved. I don't think I've shown you. So I put the Perry Belcher one up, and there's a picture I took, and the way I angle it, you're sitting in the audience and you're listening. And I had another one where Perry is sitting in the audience listening. And I was like, I finally threw an event where I've got Rich and Perry's attention, and they're watching their presenter on stage and learning something. Well, thank you for sharing that note. And you're absolutely right, by the way. I don't know if you know, but I'm doing shorts like crazy right now. And it's made my YouTube channel go hyperbolic. It's just nuts. My TikTok it kind of started really strong, and then I don't know, it's kind of leveled off a little bit, but I don't even frankly care, because the YouTube is really where I was most excited to grow long term, and it was really taken off. So here's a question. I'm gonna give you one out of left field a little bit, but that's like 2008, right? You write the first report on automated webinars. Now we're sitting in 2022, so it's 14 years later. What's different? What can we do with webinars today that maybe you didn't even foresee back in 2008? Or, is it just as powerful? Is it less powerful? Like, you're the rare person who can actually compare the two. So give us the comparison.
Well, I would say that it's not that it's less powerful, but I would say that what most people don't realize about any marketing strategy or tactic is that over time, two things happen. That the results you get by doing it the exact same way go down over time, right? Just naturally. And at the same time that the results are going down, the effort to get results goes up. So that's just the nature of the beast, right? Like, there's no doubt that, I released the Internet Business Manifesto in 2006, and, millions of downloads. If I released a free report today that was a PDF, it's just not going to have anywhere near the same effect. And when we first started with automated webinars back in 2008, the registration rate was like 80%. And the show up rate was like 75%. It was just a different game back then. You could be a lot worse and still make a lot of money, right? Because everything was easier. But a lot of the elements that made it work back then are still effective today, and a lot of people still violate some of those core things that were effective then and are effective now. And I'll give you two that are just basically obvious. One is that, and I'm sure I know that neither of these will be new to you, but I think they'll be new to a lot of people. One is that what we found really early on with webinars was that the less that we had on the registration page, the less information we had on the registration page, the higher the amount the higher the registration, but the lower the show up rate. And the more that we had on the registration page, the lower the registration rate, but the higher the show up. And so what we decided to do, and we still do this to this day, is that we keep the registration page really clean with very little information on it. And then we use the very next page to have all the information on it before like finishing the registration process. So because we want to get as many email addresses and names as possible. And so that's why we keep that first page really clean to maximize the number of registrations. And then we try and sell them on showing up by giving them the rest of the information about the speaker, what they're going to cover and all that on the second page. And so if you've never tried that and you have a webinar, you will notice a big difference in the overall rate of registrations and also the show up by having the best of both worlds by splitting that goal into 2 pages as opposed to always trying to do it on 1 page.
That's a huge tip. I hope everyone took that away. That's a big one. And I've been doing something very unique that I haven't seen any other webinar person do, which is taking what you just said, Rich, and just maybe evolving it a little bit. And that is, I actually have the thank you page where people land after registering. So for me, we actually made the reg page a little bit longer, and we were finding with paid traffic with Facebook and Google that when we go for the really, really short pages, we would find ourselves in more trouble. There was more declines, and I've seen many people pull it off. But we did find the minute we went with more copy, that issue went away. So that was actually our biggest reason for going to more copy. But still, what we did back on the thank you page is when you land, I've decided one thing that's very, it's just psychology. The more times I get someone to do something that I tell them to do, the more engaged they are and the more of their attention I have. So, when you're speaking on stage, a great speaker, you'll always see, raise your hands if you agree with me. And they're just making you do stuff. And it's really just because you're keeping their attention. So what I do on the thank you page is, number one, I'll be like, number one, I need you to go ahead and click like right now if you are fully in, committed. Number two, there's a training right below this. Okay, yes, I've got a 15-minute video. It's homework. I want you to watch before you come to the workshop. You don't have to watch it, but those who do are going to get twice as much out of the workshop than those who don't. And then I always say, step number 3, let's all have some public accountability to one another. Tell me you're in and that you're going to show up live. I have seriously done this on every webinar I've done now for the last 3, 4, 5 years. And you would think that my audience, probably 3 years, has just gotten used to it. It's like, nope. The reason I love making them watch that video, I actually saw this. My attendance rate went up a little bit. It didn't really monstrously go up by 50%. However, these people are coming on and already know what we're talking about, and I've already seeded them with the idea that I'm selling them something. And they're still there, and they're excited. And I have found that my retention till the end, till the CTA, till the call to action, significantly went up by doing it this way. Because I might have actually shook the tree and got rid of some of the people that probably shouldn't even be on the webinar. So what I noticed was show rate went up a little bit, retention shot up, conversion went up. So that I found, and here's the last piece I found that's really interesting. The way I do at my peak of promotions, we would do up to 2 promotions a month that were webinar driven to the same audience. Anyone would look at that and go, oh my God, you're burning and churning your list. And I wasn't, and I'm not. Until this day, we have an audience of 700 to 800,000 people we mail at about a 25 to 28% open rate. Not doing it as good as the person you mentioned, but that's still a pretty huge number to open at 26, 27, 28%. So what I found is the way I'm doing my promos, by lacing in that content feeling into the promo, I'm not making the audience feel like I'm beating them over the head with promo. They're actually getting something out of the promos. So it's like this, we kind of kept massaging the system till we got to this synergy, and I've tried to go away from it. And whenever I do, it loses its feeling. So for an email list management perspective, it's done wonders for us. The last thing I'll tell you is when someone registers for a webinar 5 days before it, what the heck do you say to them? You got 5 days. You need something to keep them engaged. What do you, 5 days ago, 4 days ago, 3 days ago, it gets boring. Well, when you've got a couple of training pieces between then that you can promote to them, you got yourself something to talk about to keep their attention and keep them engaged. So I love what you said, which is hey, it's not enough to just say, I'm doing a workshop, it's gonna be great. Actually, nowadays people really need to, like, they need to be sold on attending. Time is money, so you have to convince them to actually show up and give you an hour or two of their time. So superb piece of advice there.
And you shared, like, with me a strategy. This was like for my product, like it was a while back, but it was how you created a book really fast and used that in your advertising for your webinar, and the difference it made, as far as lower cost per registrant, higher show up rate, and everything else. And to this day, that's still quite a few people's favorite episode in Steal Our Winners. So nicely done. And it's very much a webinar strategy. A webinar strategy that I shared the last time at WebinarCon, and it's still another thing that I see most people don't do. Obviously, I'm a big fan of webinars. Really, I've made more money with webinars than anything else. Like, as far as my free reports and everything else, webinars were really the thing that put me over the edge, like, wealth-wise, because we didn't really sell that many back ends in strategic profits. Maybe we sold like 3 or 4 a month until we had automated webinars. And then all of a sudden we were selling 10, 15, 20 a day. And it really changed my life and our business. But we found out really early on that, we could only send a few emails to a replay before we would burn out the list. And and so we wanted to do something else. And it's interesting because even though webinars have made me a lot of money, and probably, like I said, more money than any other marketing tactic, I'm not a big fan of attending webinars, just never have been. And so, like Dan Kennedy, for example, I'm a fan of Dan Kennedy's. And if Dan Kennedy was having a webinar, I may or may not show up. But if you were going to give me access for a limited time of Dan Kennedy's latest presentation that he did at Info Summit, that I'd probably watch. And so I shared this at WebinarCon, like when I was there last time, that one thing that we did that was a total game changer for our business was that we included this as part of the webinar funnel, even though for the prospect customer, they didn't know that these was one campaign. They thought these were 2 separate campaigns. And anyone that did not buy from the webinar or didn't show up for the webinar or showed up and left early, I had a very similar, I used the same slide, so pretty much the same presentation that I had done on stage. That was what the webinar was. And I did it at a Early to Rise, which is another company at their boot camp. And that, if you attended that boot camp, it cost like $2,000 or $3,000 and it was sold out. So we, like, if someone, like a week after someone has registered for the webinar and they didn't end up buying, they got invited that weekend to a special presentation that they would have had to have paid $2,000 or $3,000 to attend. And even then, they probably wouldn't have gotten in because it was sold out. You can watch this presentation that I gave at Early to Rise Bootcamp. And so it's different because it's not a webinar. It's now me on stage, but it's the same presentation, different title, but same presentation, and then ends with the same offer. And we would get anywhere from like 50% more sales to 75% more sales. So we almost doubled our sales of the webinar funnel by adding that video, right? So anyone who has a successful webinar, if you can take that presentation and do it on stage and then have it be like seem like a totally different campaign, but really it's just the second component of your webinar funnel, then you will clean up all the people, you'll clean up on sales from all the people that are just not big fans of webinars, but it's part of the webinar process. And so I shared that. And like I said, at the last WebinarCon, I won't be sharing it again because we got newer and better stuff to be sharing, but it's still something that I talk to a lot of people about, because if they have a successful webinar, they're excited, but they're really leaving a lot of money on the table because, having that other type of medium, that other kind of way of presenting the message is extremely valuable. And that's the way I've always thought about it. Like, for me, the manifesto really changed my life. And so the message in the manifesto, like when someone gets exposed to it, they're immediately worth like $100 to strategic profits. And so the question is, like, if someone is exposed to a message they're worth $100 or $200 to me, like on average, then I want as many people in the world to be exposed to that message. But I'm not like, I have no preference in what way they consume that message. If they want to read a free report, they can read it in a free report. If they want to listen to an audio, they can listen to an audio. If they want to attend a webinar, they can attend a webinar or a live stream or like a presentation of me on stage. Like, it's the same message, because that message makes me money. And I want to package it in as many formats as possible to give everyone the chance to hear that message, because they're worth a lot more money to me once they've heard that message. And so people should be thinking that when they think about their webinar, like, what are all the ways that I can slice and dice this, package it in other formats? Because like, the hard work has already been done. You created a message that actually makes you money. Now replicate it. Right. And I know that you feel the same way.
100%. Well, and we'll close it up at this, because I want to respect your time. Plus, quite frankly, I don't want to give away too much of your great stuff until people come to WebinarCon. This is supposed to be a teaser, but of course, Rich is pouring out. Rich, I can actually back up what you just said with actual hard data on my side. And now I'm thinking I should. So here's advice I gave to someone who's in my mastermind recently. We got on a call, and I think I added about $2 million a year to their business, assuming they do it. They have a webinar funnel that ends at 6 days. And I was like, why does it end at 6 days? They're like, well, it's just, what else do I have to say to them? I was like, well, how many people have watched your webinar at that point? He's like, I don't know, about 40 or 50%. I'm like, what about the other 50%? You're just going to give up on them in 6 days? You paid a lot of money to get them. You paid Google, Facebook, a lot of that. So for us, we started this in 2020. It wasn't my invention. It was actually someone on my team who thought, well, maybe people don't just want to watch a webinar. So why don't we just start a video series? And so what we literally did is had me film the webinar in 3 parts, slides next to me, the exact same slides, but on camera. It's different. It's a video. And video 1 is like the story. Video 2 is the content. Video 3 is the pitch. It's literally the webinar split into 3. Now we gave ourselves another week plus worth of stuff to talk about to the back end of that funnel. And we actually tracked this on 3 different occasions in 2020, 3 different webinar funnels we were doing. We increased our evergreen webinar sales by 30% just by adding that series. And we've kind of since stopped. And recently I was just asking, we're getting ready to build our next evergreen funnel. This is like my one all, like, I'm going all in. And the team starts designing the funnel. And of course, by design, they stop at week 2 because that's what we've always done. And I was like, why don't we have a week 3? Why not a week 3 and a week 4? And I was kind of thinking what's next, but I love your idea. I can do the same presentation on stage. I actually have a stage here. I have a whole facility, and then just say, Anik just did a presentation on stage. You have a weekend to watch it. It's such a different feel, and you're 1000% right. That was brilliant. I would not watch a webinar, but I will watch stage presentation on YouTube. I do it all the time. Every night before I go to bed, I'm watching these things. So
I'll tell you one thing that I wanted to do, but I'm just too lazy and I never did. So maybe you'll do it. So after that stage presentation worked so well, I was like, well, let's do another one. Let's figure out another type of thing, right? And so what I wanted to do, this was going to be my version. You could figure out like some lateral version. But what I wanted to do was rent like one of those trailers that they use in movies that they put cars on that make it look, they're so low to the ground, it makes it look like you're driving. Like, but they're not, because they're like this much off the ground, right? Yeah. So I was gonna put my convertible or some car like on that, and I was going to do the same presentation, right? But I was going to say that I was going to have my sister in the car with me, and my sister wants to like start an online business. We're going to drive down to Miami, and on the drive down, I'm going to tell her everything that she needs to know to start a profitable online business. And you can be a fly on the wall in that car and listen to the whole conversation. And it was going to be, once again, it was going to be the same presentation that I did on stage in the webinar, because it's just another hook, another angle to like share that like message. And you know, at Agora, one of the things that we do is we create many different leads for a webinar, because, you know, the biggest drop off is right in the beginning. And you can have 5 different names for the same webinar, have them all start differently, but be the same webinar. And we've had a lot of success with that at Agora. And this is just another way, by creating a totally different hook, by creating like a different story around the presentation. And I think like, I'm positive that if I would have done that, we would have added another like 30, 40 or 50% because people would be interested in like what advice I'm going to give my sister, like to start her online business, right? But it would be the same.
Yeah. No, I love it, man. I love it. Well, listen, this has been such an amazing conversation. I'd love to keep going, and we will. We're going to finish it up at WebinarCon. So for everyone who's watching right now, you want to come meet Rich, you want to be able to hang out with him, we're not going to have more than 200 people in the room. It's an intimate room. Everyone in that room is advanced. Everyone in that room has a webinar or is currently launching a webinar. But even if they're just launching a webinar, they're already making probably multiple 6 figures, if not 7 figures in revenue. It's an amazing room. The networking. Now you might be saying, well, I'm an introvert. I don't like networking. Great. Because the way we do it, you won't even realize it. We've accounted for that. So we actually have the event outlined in such a way that you basically can't help but meet a ton of people and walk away with a ton of business. Plus, we have a lot of fun. We've got parties. We're actually just got off a call yesterday where we're planning out some of our parties and hangout events. It's in Austin, Texas this year, November 18, 19, and 20. So make sure you show up. Go to WebinarCon.com. WebinarCon.com. Now, we still have a few sponsorship availability too. So if you want to speak or if you want to be able to get your offer in front of this massively amazing audience, you let us know because we actually have about 3 spots left in our main sponsorship and then that's it. So WebinarCon.com. I'll see you November 18th to 20th in Austin, Texas. Rich, as always, thank you so much. I can't wait to see you again in November and learn from you more.
Ditto. And just to once again give my 2 cents, if you have a webinar in your business, there is no place better than you should be than at WebinarCon, because if you're making money from webinars in your business, you want to be in a room with 200 other people who are making money in their business with webinars. There's no better place to learn from, and there's no better place to do deals like in a room like that. And I'm an introvert, but you have a commonality. You use webinars, so you have something already to talk about, and just go there knowing what your numbers are, like what your EPCs are, what your conversion rate is, and guaranteed those numbers will be better when you get back home based on what you've learned. And you'll be able to figure out what are people doing that you're not doing. Hopefully you're doing something that other people aren't doing, so you can share that. But there's no doubt that the person sitting to your left, the person sitting to your right, they're doing webinars too. And so you're very quickly find a lot of partners in that room and people that speak the same language. And yeah, I'm just a big fan. I'm happy to do this interview, and I'm really excited to be presenting. And so I was really excited that you asked me. And I hope to see a lot of people there who are watching this.
Thanks so much, man. And those are kind words, but I know that even I agree with everything. This is the only event I really go to every year. I love going to it. So thank you very much, Rich. And to the rest of you, we will see you at the event at WebinarCon.com. See you guys later. Bye.